Hey guys, and today I'm going to do my tips for round 17. The first game we have up is a huge game at Etihad Stadium with North Melbourne facing Carlton. And last week, North Melbourne coughed up a 33-point lead, or I think it was something along those lines. And yeah, they conceded the 4 points in the end. And Carlton were terrific on the other hand. They won against the Saints by 36 points. And the last time these sides went up against each other, it was North Melbourne winning quite easily by 53 points. North have won 3 of the last 5 clashes against Carlton, so they've done alright against them in recent times. Carlton just can't lose this game if they want to make finals, so it's just a must win. I like the Roos because they just generally seem to have a decent hoodoo over them, and that generally gets them across the line. I'm going to go with the Roos by 20 points. Hawthorn play the Western Bulldogs at Aurora Stadium on the Saturday afternoon. Last week, Hawthorn did quite well away from home. They defeated Port Adelaide by 45 points. And the Western Bulldogs were pretty competitive against the Bombers, but they just couldn't quite keep up with them in the final quarter. The last time these sides went up against each other, it was Hawthorn getting a pretty easy win, recording a 72-point victory. I don't think the Dogs have beaten the Hawks since 2009, and I don't think that's really going to change this year. You'd have to be nuts not to tip Hawthorn. I mean, they're the best team in the competition when they're not playing Geelong. I'm going to tip the Hawks by 56 points. GWS host Essendon at Dakota Stadium on the Saturday afternoon. Last week, GWS got absolutely flogged by crosstown rival Sydney, and Essendon were challenged by the Doggies, but they had the extra polish in the final quarter and they recorded a 31-point victory. Unusually though, the last time these sides went up against each other, it was Essendon at Etihad Stadium by only 39 points, which was just amazing really. They were very competitive, GWS. If anything though, I think the Bombers will be on their game this weekend. They should win by more. Hopefully, their percentage wouldn't mind it at all. I'm going to tip the Bombers by 61 points. Collingwood travel up to Gold Coast to take on the Gold Coast at Metricon Stadium on late Saturday afternoon. Last week, Collingwood were challenged by Adelaide, but they got up in the end by 27 points. And Gold Coast couldn't quite steal 3 victories in a row against the Tigers. Last encounter between these sides, it was Collingwood getting a pretty emphatic victory at the MCG, winning by 97 points. Collingwood are 10-5 and Gold Coast are basically the reverse of that. But Gold Coast have shown they can be very competitive at home at times this year. You'd think if Collingwood are fair income about finals, they should bank this game and hopefully get it on the board. I'm going to tip Collingwood by 33 points. St Kilda and Port Adelaide at Etihad Stadium seems to be a fascinating contest on the Saturday night. Last week, St Kilda couldn't quite keep their hoodoo going against Carlton, but that's the 3rd time in 11 years they've lost to them, which is quite an astounding figure. And Port Adelaide just couldn't quite match it with the competition heavyweight. The last time these sides went up against each other, it was Port Adelaide prevailing by 4 points. If this was at AAMI Stadium, you'd just about put it in the book for Port, but it's at Etihad Stadium, which hasn't always been a happy hunting ground for Port Adelaide, so it'll certainly be a test for them. And I guess this game in general will really see if Port are the real deal and to see how competitive they really can be away from home. I think it should be close. I'm going to go with Port by 13 points. Melbourne and Brisbane head up to TIO Stadium on the Saturday night. Last week, Brisbane, again, they came from behind magnificently. And they got a 17-point win in the end against North. And Melbourne, well, they just kept the 4 goals. I think that's enough said. And the last time these sides went up against each other, it was a pretty gutsy effort from Melbourne, but Brisbane got the job done in the end by 28 points. The Demons haven't beaten the Lions since the start of 2011, so it's definitely a big ask for them. But it's not impossible since this is an apparent stat. They haven't lost 4 games in a row against the Lions ever, so it might be in for an upset on the Saturday night, who knows. I think Brisbane have a decent run home. It all starts here and they really need a win on the Saturday night just to keep their finals chances mathematically intact. But I'm going to go with Brisbane by 22 points. Arguably match of the round here. It's a huge game at the MCG, hosting Richmond and Fremantle on the Sunday. Last week, Richmond, they finally got the monkey off the back against the Gold Coast Suns, registering a 9-point win. And Fremantle were just terrific against West Coast in the Derby, and they got a 28-point win. The last time these sides encountered, it was a bit of controversy with the goal umpire, but Richmond lost by 1 point away from home. The thing with Fremantle, and I'll say it a bit, is they've developed an attitude to win anytime, anywhere, and that just makes them a really dangerous side to play. Last year, Fremantle won against the Tigers in the MCG by 12 points in the wet conditions. Matthew Pavlich kicked 6, but he'll be out this week suspended, so it could be a bit of a loss for them. And yeah, it's a real toss of the coin, this game, really. You just don't know who's going to win, but I think Fremantle are just a top 4 side, and wins like this really give them a lot of confidence. But it'll definitely show where both sides are at. It's going to be close. I'm going to tip Fremantle by 10 points. Geelong have a trip to Adelaide to take on Adelaide at AAMI Stadium on the Sunday. Last week, Geelong were pretty good against Melbourne, it has to be said. They kept them to a record low 19 inside 50s, and they recorded a nice 68-point victory in the end. On the other hand, Adelaide were pretty competitive against Collingwood at the MCG, and they lost in the end by 27 points and just like the polish in the last quarter. The last time these sides went up against each other, it was Geelong by 27 points. But earlier in that year, it was Adelaide giving Geelong a 50-point thumping at AAMI Stadium. Traditionally, Geelong don't play that well at AAMI Stadium. Like, they were the top 2 in the competition. Adelaide was struggling, and in round 21 of 2011, Geelong only won by 11 points, so that was quite amazing. And when they were pretty good in 2010, they got a surprise upset loss at AAMI Stadium to Adelaide, so you never really know what you're going to get. And I can't imagine it being a big blowout because, well, Adelaide challenged the Hawks, and I think there was only a couple of goals in that. However, I'm going to go with Geelong by 20 points. The last game of the round features a rivalry that was absolutely incredible 7 years ago. West Coast and Sydney fighting out at Patterson Stadium. Last week, West Coast just weren't quite good enough to get across the line against Fremantle, and Sydney gave crosstown rivals GWS an absolute shellacking, winning by 129 points. The last time these sides encountered each other, it was Sydney easily winning by 52 points. Reality says that this rivalry just isn't what it used to be, because Sydney have had West Coast measured for quite a while, since the Eagles haven't beaten them since the middle of 2007. And Sydney have also just been one of those sides that have been able to beat West Coast, even at their fortress when they couldn't lose a game there. So they've done alright. If Sydney want to finish top 4, these are the games they just have to win. I think they're easily the better team, but hopefully it's a good contest nonetheless. I'm going to tip Sydney by 37 points. So those are my tips for round 17. Feel free to comment yours. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you guys all soon.